You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 42. I'm so excited to have with you this beautiful lady who is full of so much energy and light and wisdom, and I'm so excited to welcome Jessie into the podcast day. Thank you for coming and joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and for your beautiful intro. I'm blessed to be here.
Good. Oh, you're so welcome. And please let the audience know your full title, what it is you do and who you are.
Oh, of course. So I am a breathwork expert and wellbeing consultant. So I work with people to understand how they can use their breath to completely transform their lives. It's something that's helped me many years ago. We can probably get into it in the podcast, but it has transformed my life. So I'm so passionate about helping others help to heal and unlock their greatest potential by using their breath.
Yes, absolutely. And my real pivotal moment of my healing journey was doing a breath work class. And that just unlocked all of my childhood trauma. I cried for like a full hour and a half through the session. And then I came out of it, and everything, all the tension in my body that I'd held on to for my whole life was gone. So
Wow.
I literally am a massive advocate for breath work. And obviously being a dancer, having a background of being a dancer, I've always kind of used movement in a mindful sense as well. So, like always
Mhm.
been aware of how I use my breath for control and, how it supports me in certain spaces. So, and I'm massive on meditation as well. So for me, breath work is such a key thing that we're only just starting to talk about. And funny enough, I fumbled into it. It was literally in my healing journey. And this is the thing about the universe, isn't it? As we were speaking about earlier, it's like there's no mistakes. I was doing my healing journey, and a friend of mine was collaborating with someone that did breath work, and it was just
Yeah.
like a 3-day thing. And yeah, I didn't realize when I joined the breathwork session that was an inner child healing breathwork session. So I was like, wow,
Mm.
okay. And luckily it was on Zoom, because as I said to you, I sobbed the whole way through, like fully like
Mm.
and like everything inside of me, because it's hard, isn't it? Breathwork, it can be really invigorating, some like parts of it.
I'm
And
so pleased that you say that. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah,
Yes.
no, absolutely. And I remember, I think it was you're breathing out for 7, in for 4, something like that. Or and then it was getting more and more and more. So you're breathing out longer than you're breathing in. So I was like a bit out of breath, like through it. And she was saying, like on Zoom, it's harder to manage your space. So if you ever get to a point where you can't do it any longer, you have to stop. And she obviously gave us all the disclaimers. But I was like, in that toxic masculine way, I was like, no, I'm gonna complete it fully. My body was vibrating, my hands
Mm.
went cold, like everything, all of the things that they said would happen fully happened. Like I literally had like an out of body experience, and like all the memories were flooding back. Energy was like floating around the room. I felt like I was in a kaleidoscope of like energy. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that in at the start so people can see how powerful this is, and they're not just thinking, oh, what's this? I want people to know that this is really incredible, incredible work. But please tell us about you. Like, tell us about your journey. You can go on and go in as much detail as possible, but kind of how this came around. Yeah, and a bit about you, because obviously, for me, I'm really passionate about the people behind what they do, not just obviously what you do.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your experience because it is really powerful and everyone has their own experience. But I love what you said there about a kaleidoscope of energy.
Mm.
I'm gonna pinch that. That was great
Yeah, that's cool.
because it
Yeah.
is. And what you said about it being harder, like to breathe in a particular way, I often say, that's why it's called breath work. Some people think
Mm.
breathing, it's just gentle and relaxing, and yes, it can be. But when you get into it, there is real deep healing that's happening. So,
Mm.
my journey, yeah, I haven't always done this. I actually used to work in corporate. So, I used to be a HR recruitment executive. I'd work in finance and legal, so dealing with, a lot of lawyers, and would work out in Australia and in the UK, and loved what I did to an extent. When my last role started to get bigger and bigger and the pressure was really on and I wasn't getting the support I needed, I started to really feel the impact of that and was feeling the negative effects of that pressure. I wasn't looking after myself. My health was suffering. My mental health was suffering. So I decided to leave and take some time out. I'm like, what am I going to do? Do I just want to take another corporate job, or do I just need to have a reset? And I felt like I needed to be away somewhere. So at this point, I was living back in London, and I was like, Brazil was calling me, like in my heart. I don't know if you've ever had that where a place is calling you. So I applied for just a project to work on for about 6 weeks out in Brazil. And actually, funny enough, they offered me the spot in India. And I was like, no, 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 I want to go to Brazil. And so they gave me the spot in Brazil. And when I was out there working on this project, it was working with social enterprise and entrepreneurs in the favela communities and supporting them with their businesses. And what it helped me to do is really connect with people in a different way. And in that, connect with myself and start to live life again. Like, Rio has the most beautiful backdrop. You've got the ocean, you've got the mountains, you've got this beautiful vibrancy from the people. And I realized how disconnected I'd become from myself and from reality and life. And so I decided, instead of just going back into a corporate job, I'm going to retrain as a coach, because parts of my job had been coaching anyway. I love working with people. I love supporting people and helping them achieve what they want to. So, as part of my journey in training, I started to connect with coaches in my community to find out more about what it's all about. And I was connected with a breathing coach, like a lady who had just certified as a breathing coach. And I was like, huh? Wait a minute. You're teaching people how to breathe. Like, what is this? Like, I'm already breathing. What is this all about? And she's like, I'm running my first class. Come along to this class. And so I did. And I missed the whole introduction. So, you're talking about, you got disclaimers and instructions and everything. I missed all of that. So I rocked up to this conscious connected breathing session. And we went into it, and there was loads going on. We were breathing through an open mouth, and it was a bigger breath and a softer inhale, and then we were using sound, we were using movement. There was loads of things going on, and I just went with it, and I was like, whoa, just surrender, just try it, just give it a go. And at the end of the session, I connected with this deep sense of peace and stillness that I hadn't felt in so long, if at all. And I was like, whoa, I can feel like this from breathing. Tell me more. And so this lady was running workshops, and I kept going to her classes and working with her. And every time I breathed in this way, I would start to have emotional releases. And I was like, sometimes I didn't know why I was crying. Sometimes I connected it to an event or something, and it was like a release. And I was like, this is making me feel so good just from breathing. And then there was a 6-day seminar that she was organizing, and they call it a personal seminar, but it's like the first week of the training program. And I had no intention of being a facilitator in training. I was just like, tell me more about this breath work that makes me feel so amazing. How can I do it for myself? I just want to know everything. And I go along, and in this seminar, you're doing 2 full breathing sessions a day, as well as all the meditation, all the fun bits in between. And so you're having lots of breakthroughs. But for me, I remember it clearly, it was my 4th day of the seminar. And we'd had a water breathing session in the morning, which is to help clear any traumas you may have had around childbirth, which is a whole nother episode we could do. It's fascinating. And in the afternoon session, during my breath work, I had the biggest emotional release I've ever had. Like you said, you were sobbing. I was literally sobbing. My body was shaking. It was just, I couldn't control it. It was such a big release. And I knew it was from my childhood trauma. So when I was 16, we lost my father in a tragic accident. We actually had a fire in the house and lost everything at that time. So life-changing moment. And at that time, you take the steps necessary to deal with it, and you take counseling, therapies, deal with it on a very cognitive level, right? So you start to accept it, move on, life, this is what's happened. I had no idea I'd stored away deep in my body. Like there's a saying I repeat, it's your issues are in your tissues. And I had no idea that we'd stored it away on a cellular level. For 20 years, I was carrying this around. And when this released, oh my goodness, like at the end of the session as well, I could only describe it as feeling like myself again, and feeling like not just a weight had been lifted, not feeling just clearer in my head, but like I was so grounded in my body. I knew who I was. It felt like almost like a veil had been lifted, like I've been carrying something for so long. And I knew in that moment, that's when I have to share this. And my first thought was, I have to share it with my family, like my mum and my brother and sisters. They have to know how to do this. So that's when I decided I have to train as a facilitator, because I thought there's something amazing in this. And it's just transformed my life more and more every time I breathe. But through that just was my opening, and what led me to then train in Brazil and Mexico and the US and the UK. I've traveled all the world training, and I'm now based back in London sharing this full time. And I am so blessed every day that I got to experience that. And I agree that what you said is that you weren't looking for breath work. I think it finds you almost when you're ready. Because I think breath work's been around for forever, right? And if I'd found it when I was a teenager, maybe I wouldn't have connected it with it in the same way. I had to go through certain experiences and yeah, find it when I was ready, when it would actually, when I'd connect with it and allow the openings.
Oh my gosh, Jessie, that was such a beautiful story, and so much value and imagery that you were creating there. So wonderful. And I'm so glad that you got the chance to go to Brazil, because it's beautiful, isn't it? Just absolutely
Mm.
stunning. I went to Brazil, Rio Carnival in 2018, and we actually stayed in a favela at some point. So I know
I would
exactly
have
what you're
been
talking about.
there.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And we did the yeah, we went to the carnival and did all the things. Amazing, isn't it? Just an amazing experience. And I think that's so much of like what you were saying in terms of, living, you were just existing, weren't you? And almost like when you
Mm.
got to Brazil, like the vibrancy of the color is always like the smells, it's like waking you up to
Yeah.
life, right? And I think
Yes.
there's no other place to be to feel fully invigorated than Brazil, because it's literally so immersive, isn't it? Which is incredible. And you know, everything you were saying then, I'm so sorry to hear about the experience that you had growing up, but I can resonate fully with you in that space. Like for me, my dad was an alcoholic, but when he passed away, it was a shock. We wasn't
Mm.
expecting that to happen. He went into hospital with a water infection, and then he didn't come out. So
Oh,
I
God.
I know the same feeling that you had there. It's that confusion, isn't it? And for you it's worse, because there was no build up to that. There was no kind of decline or anything that you got to see. So it is pure abandonment, that situation. And I think
Mm.
it's that saying, isn't it? The body keeps the score. So it doesn't matter how much you kind of try to, like you said, cognitively release it, physically the body stores it. And I had exactly the same experience with the breathwork thing, where you go in and you have the experience, and then in that moment I didn't realize how much tension I've been holding my whole life. Like
Yeah.
I literally was like mind blown at how I'd always been holding a knot in my stomach, and I didn't realize I didn't have to hold that anymore. And then when I came
Mm.
out of it and I felt light, I was confused. I was like, what the hell has happened to me? Because
Yeah.
I felt so light, and that continued. And I suffered with IBS my whole life, not realizing that was trauma related. And then
Mm.
when I did the breathwork thing, it just went. It just
Wow.
stopped. And now I'm trying to heal the debris left in my body because of that. Because obviously, like we said, it manifests itself physically. So emotionally, I'd been able to heal that disconnect, or that connection between, um, the trauma to the gut. I
Mhm.
healed that emotionally, but physically now, this is the part I'm clearing out and working through, um, actually tangibly. But I think it's just, yeah, crazy, isn't it? And like you said, like, it finds you. And I love that you did the course. I love that you went into that. And it's just, this is the thing about finding purpose, I think we speak about quite a lot, isn't it? It's that
Yeah.
we I think people think that purpose is external and it's extrinsic, but it's really not. It's so internal and
Mhm.
intrinsic to who you are. And, you just followed a hunch of something you enjoyed to do, something that brought you joy, and you followed it and kept pursuing it and deepening your understanding and knowing of that, to the point where you embodied it, and you embody it now. And I think, that's such a beautiful thing for people to hear and understand, that you don't have to know what the next steps are, you just follow the joy. And I think that's
Yeah.
really it, isn't it? And that's what you've done in this space, which is so beautiful.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that, because it is, and it takes a level of trust and courage
Mm,
to be able to do that, because we are almost programmed from a young age to have a plan and have our next
mm,
steps, and this is what you should be doing, and this is what you have to do. And it's like knowing if that feels good for you or not, because if it feels good, amazing. If it
mm,
doesn't, listen to the signs, pay attention, because I was almost forced to do that, Sherisse. I was forced to,
mm,
because I got to the point that my body was suffering. I was drinking too much. I had unhealthy habits. It was impacting my sleep. It was impacting my relationships. I was forced to make a change.
mm,
Whereas I had had the sense or the feeling for many, many years that I should be doing something else.
mm,
When I was working out in Australia, I went out there straight after university, less than a year after uni, and started working in recruitment. And you get a sponsorship visa, which allows you to work in that field. And I knew early on, I was like, oh, I want to do something else. I don't think this is right for me. I loved it. I was good at it, but I was like, there's something else I want to be doing. But if I changed, I'd have to leave the country because of my visa or something else. So I just stayed and carried on and continued. And it got to the point, I was like, well, this is what I do now. Even though there was
mm,
like, oh, but I could try this. Oh, but I could try this. And I wouldn't listen. I'd shut that down. And
mm.
what I think back to now is like, I wish I'd explored different things, even as a hobby, as a
Yeah,
creative outlet. So at least I was feeding that kind of desire, because that's who
absolutely.
you are.
Hmm.
That's who you are. So when you talk about, following your purpose and the joy, if it's something that you can't do full time, if you can't make it something that you earn money from, then still do it in some capacity. Make it a
Absolutely.
hobby, incorporate into your life somehow.
Mm.
Like I look at you, Sherisse, and your dancing is just unbelievable. Like it inspires me, because that's also
Oh,
something I want to
thank
do. And I'm
you.
like, I'm obsessed with that. I want to come and do that. It's because you are just the embodiment of that joy, when you're doing it, and that filters out and reflects in every aspect of your life. So it's,
Yeah.
a perfect example of how like your joy is what you should be doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's exactly that. I think, that's a really lovely thank you to highlight that. And I think that for me, in all areas of my life, it's always been that. There's
Mm,
always been a burning desire for more or for something, and I've always followed that hunch. So with the dance stuff, dance is still a really important part of my life, and I'm not going to change that and take that away from myself, because
mm,
I still love that. I love seeing people light up when they're in the room with me, and watching them grow in confidence. All of those things are beautiful to me. And that watching people grow and transform was really this inspiration to open up the mentoring side of what I do now, because that's all really, again, intrinsic to who I've always been. I've always been the person to give advice and support. I've been through so much in my life that it just made sense to me to actually start funneling into that and working on that and growing in that space, and doing the educate myself in that area and all of the things. And I think, yeah, I guess I really am the embodiment of that living in purpose, because I'm always listening to what I need and want, but
Mm.
society makes us feel different and otherwise. And I completely understand why when you were younger, you did keep following what you thought was right to do by society, because I had so much backlash from not doing that. And it was very difficult to live my life without hearing every single day, oh, you can't make that a career, or what are you going to do there, or constant questions and
Yeah.
setbacks. Whereas I'm sure that you never got questioned, oh, you work in recruitment, are you going to do that forever? I'm sure no one said that to you. Do you know what I mean? Whereas as a dancer, that was all I got asked all the time, was like, well, what are you going to do next? What's happening then? I'm like, you don't go to an accountant and say, oh, what are you going to do after this then? Do you know what I mean? It's like there was so many setbacks I had because of it. So I understand why people don't pursue anything else, because it is hard. But like you said, it can be a hobby. It can be something you do in your pastime. It can be a side hustle. It doesn't have to be everything right away and or ever. I know lots of people that just, have a passion for something and just do it in their spare time. And then when they retire, they do it all the time. And that's
Yeah.
still a beautiful way to live life, isn't it? I think if you're career path is a vehicle to you being able to then travel more or do the things you like and enjoy, that's also a really lovely outcome, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I feel like you've mentioned this in little kind of drips and drabs, and I'd love to dive into this a little bit more. A question that I always ask my guests is, what's an obstacle that you've had to constantly overcome? Like even now when you're doing the breath work and you're healing through things, like what is something that keeps coming up for you that you have to keep working through?
So for me, there's always been an underlying something around self-worth.
Mm,
And well, if I do that, who needs that? Who's going to want to work with me? Who needs, like, why should I?
mm,
But someone else is already doing it. Why should I do it? And even though I know in my mind, like my conscious mind, come on, Jess, of course, there's space for everybody. Everything I teach is there. But like underlying, it's like something I'm constantly working on and I'm aware of. And I have to then go into that self-love practice. Like I have self-love practices. It's something I consciously, actively work on all the time. And it's something I like to share because sometimes people look at you as a coach or do you know the nature of your work, thinking you've got it all together, you're perfect and
mm,
all this. And I'm like, thank you. I have got certain things together, but I've worked hard at that. But it's a continuous work in progress, and that's what we call the
absolutely.
embodiment of it, right? So for me,
Mm,
it is that almost that doubt, like, should I be doing this? Or what are people going to think? And if someone else is already doing it, so I have to always just check in with myself, and I get support as well from others. That's why community is important. Getting
absolutely.
support is important because we're meant to do things together. We're not meant to exist on our own and live
Absolutely.
solo lives, right? So I have to constantly remind myself that yes, I am here for a reason and no one else can do
Mm,
what I do. And I do use the example that, there can be 1,000 of us doing exactly the same thing, but each one of us will do it in a completely different way.
100% that.
And your energy is unique as well, right? So you're going to attract
Yeah,
in who connects with you. Yeah.
absolutely that. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that this is becoming a wave and a really important practice that is becoming more popular, it's just another way to help the world. So that's what I
Mhm.
think for the work you're doing. I'm like, I will sing it from the rooftops about breath work. Like when I started telling people that's what really transformed my healing journey, they're like, what is that? And I'm like, honestly, just go, just Google it, find the class near you, go and see what happens, because it is that wave of transformation. And, I speak about this quite a lot, but I do believe that the energy we're in right now collectively is that we're all ready for this shift, and we are leading that shift in through being the embodiment of what we're doing and practicing, and that is what's going to change the world and change the dynamics from patriarchy to a new way. So I think it's
Yes.
all just so important and beautiful in everything that you're doing. And there was something else that you said, and it's gone now because I was just off on a rant there, but
That was so perfect. But exactly that. I was thinking about this and the name of your podcast, Permission to Shine, right? If you are able to stand in your light, then you are
Mm,
giving others permission to do the same, right?
absolutely
And
it.
that is your power. You are so
Mm,
unique. You are so individual. There's literally no one else in this earth like you. So if you
Exactly
can
that.
stand and own every part of you and go, this is me, then, you know, it's going to give permission to everyone else to do the same. And that's what I always come back to. It's like
Yeah.
people need that, right? You need that. So yeah,
That was a
permission to
clever
shine. I
loop
love it.
there. I love that, Jessie. Thank you. Maybe I need to cut that segment and put it everywhere and be like, as spoken by Jessie. Yeah,
Love it.
and that's exactly it though, to a T. And I think I'm so glad that you've been able to identify when that comes up. But what's really beautiful about the fact that we sometimes doubt ourselves is it keeps us humble. Because I
Mhm.
think sometimes there's a difference between being embodied and confident and empowered and being arrogant. And I
Mhm.
think that, you know, a lot of people will say that when they are not in that space of empowerment, they'll look at you and say, oh, who do you think you are? Or look at you, rah, rah, rah. That's jealousy, don't get me wrong. But if you take that power that you have, that empowerment, and you misuse it for not the right thing, that is really being in your ego and I guess using your strength for bad, right? It's like you become a villain, right? And
Mm.
that can so easily happen when we let the ego lead. So when we
Yes.
find this sense of confidence and we're like, well, I've got it now, I'm here. So of course people are going to love me. Of course I'm amazing because I can do this. And now I'm going to manipulate everyone to do this. That would be such a breach of what we're sent to do with our gifts. So I think that element of doubt comes in just to humble us, to make us realize that actually I am incredible, wonderful. I do make the world a better place, but so does everyone else around me. And that's a
Yeah.
humility in it. And that's why we are so passionate about what we do, because like we said, you know, knowing that we can give ourselves that confidence and inner power, we then can help others do the same. And that's when you become, you know, that higher version of yourself, because that's why I think purpose all bleeds out into each other in a really beautiful way, like, you know, like a drop in the ocean. It's that kind of energy, isn't it, that the ocean is life. Like we are all here existing in this ocean, and like every single droplet is so integral to making the ocean what it is. And I think
Mm.
that without every single person in this ocean, there would be drought and there'd be no oxygen, and there'd be, you know, the world would demise because of it. So this is how important we all are and why it is important for us to shine. I don't know where the water analogy came from there, but here
I
we
love
are.
it. Powerful. It's
We're in a
powerful.
Scorpio
It is.
moon at the moment, so that's probably why I'm feeling that way.
Are you
Um,
Scorpio?
no, I'm a Leo, so I actually go really introspect when the Scorpio moon happens, so I feel it. Also I'm in PMS at the moment, so
Mm.
well, on my period, so I feel like that really affects my emotional body. So I noticed that, you know, when you're talking about doubt, for me, I have this like I guess I overthink. I go into like overthinking spirals, and then
Mm.
I have to like pull myself out of it, because obviously what we know for sure is that the subconscious mind leads all the time, right? So then I find that when I'm triggered by something and or I'm in a hormonal spiral where I can't pull myself out, because I don't know about you, but when I'm in hormone times, I can't do anything to pull me out of it. It has to run its course. So no matter what it's going through, I can move my body and feel a little bit better. But if that hormonal energy wants to stay there, I have to just let it ride its course. There's no
Yeah.
changing it, and I sit
Yeah.
in it and I embrace it. But yeah, I feel like that the subconscious patterning of being like, well, this is this or that's that, and it will just bring up little random things all the time that it wants me to just look at.
Yeah.
And then the grace in that for me is that it comes to the surface to be released. So I'm
Yes.
like, okay, lovely. I'm glad that's come up here so I can let that go. And even I've been speaking on anxiety recently as well a lot, because I didn't realize that I was living in a constant state of anxiety. And that's why
Mm.
because I was in constant fight response, you know, like
Yeah.
in survival mode. So I lived like that for 28 years, not realizing that that was anxiety. I just thought that that was just who I was. And that's why I had this sense of, I need to get it done. I need to do it. I need to be successful, and perfectionism and all of these things coming up. And again, sitting on it recently and just being like, it doesn't have to be that way, because, you know, from doing the breathwork thing, that transformed my life. But, you know, sometimes it creeps up again a little bit. Now, I would say I lived at like a 10 in terms of anxiety. Now it flares up to like a 2, and I'm like, no, not having that. No, we're not going there. And I have to just sit with it and be like, what am I worried about? And I literally did a video today before we jumped on. And for me, anxiety is the worry of worry itself. And anxiety is the fear of fear itself. So when we can look at it like that and take away its whatever, that's the source, right? It just wants you to be scared. It wants you to be feared, or whatever it is, or worry. But actually, what are you worrying about? And when you can pull it apart like that, that's the power. And I guess that really is essentially what both of us do in our own way, right? Because you allow the emotions to come through you and release through your breath. Whereas I can combine that with the understanding and the deep knowing. And I think that that's really like our powerful ways that we both do the same thing of just allowing these feelings, emotions, and thoughts to be released from our body. Because this is it, right? When it's not in our body and our mind anymore, it has no power because it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, you've literally just said everything. I agree with 100%. And what you said about taking away its power, and that's it. With fear, you're right. You know, it's there, it's showing us something. It might be a trigger, it might be an old trauma, it might be an unconscious pattern, whatever it is. If you can look directly at that fear and work through it, then you are taking back your power, right? And you said something else quite key is allowing. We have to allow it. Because what you say about not being aware that you had this level of anxiety, because it can be so subtle, the build up of it, that we don't realize it's happening. And that's just the way that we are. And I see it in breathing patterns, because I can read breathing patterns to see where you're holding stuff in. And it can have built up over years and years and years. And sometimes it can be a beautiful, powerful release where a huge chunk of it is cleared. Or it's just a little at a time, because it's got to feel safe for you to do that. To be able to release it and let it go, you've got to allow it. And that can be the hardest part, because whatever you've built up, whatever that is there that's in place, those strategies or anything, it's been there to protect you. You've put those things in place to protect you when you needed it.
Absolutely.
And it's like realizing, okay, I don't need that now. I can put those barriers down. I can, you know, break down those walls, and I don't need that now because I'm okay. I've got this. But that takes a certain amount of courage, and you've got to be ready to feel, right?
You hit the nail on the head there. I love the way you speak about this as well. Like, I can see why you're so good at your job, because you have a sense of safety about you, which is so lovely. And I guess that allowing, for me, I would also call surrender. And that's been my biggest thing that I've learned, you know, this in my life. I think the art of surrender, because I mean, you're probably into this as well, but I've had a lot of like life regression and things like that, and I've always been a warrior. So a warrior, a fighter, a soldier. There's been like pretty much the majority of the lives that I've lived, and it's been lots of lives that I've lived, have been something to do with fighting. And this has been like one of the first lifetimes that I've not had to fight. And it's been, I mean, I know I did when I grew up, but obviously I had to fight then. So this was really, I knew that I had to break a cycle. And I've known that since I was a child, you know, like that understanding that it ends with me. And that those shifts that I've had to do in my healing journey has been healing generational things and wounds. And I think that's why surrender felt so scary for me, because it's been something that's been so alien. And sitting in it now, there's a sense of, like you said, a sense of peace that I can't put it into words, because it's space. And I think that space is something that I never had. You know, everything was on top of me, or I was busying my space with lots of things and thoughts and emotions and things I had to do. Whereas now there's like this air of stillness that just is just around me. And I can't even explain that to people, because that probably sounds crazy, but we all deserve that feeling, because that is just like, I guess it's that sigh of relief, right? It's that, it's like, oh, there's space here and it's lovely. And what's hard now is to not allow the old patterning to fill that space up. But I guess on that, what I would say to you is, I guess, when was your real pinnacle moment of giving yourself that permission to shine? Because I feel like you've mentioned key moments here, but what would you say was the real moment where you, I guess, was able to shine your brightest?
Good question. Good question. And can I just say as well, what I was thinking when you were talking about that space that you're creating in the stillness, I feel like that's you just allowing yourself to be, right? We don't allow ourselves just to be. We don't have to be doing. There's that saying, we're human beings, not human doings, right? So it's okay to just be. You don't have to be filling your time. But in answer to your question, when did I first give myself permission to shine? And I think for me, it was actually during lockdown, I would have to say, because when I moved back to London after my breathwork training, so I lived in Brazil for about a year. I moved back to London and I was starting out my breathwork journey. So I moved back in with my mum and, I was starting to see clients and build up my business. But for me, I look back and I didn't have that same kind of drive. I was just putting it out there. And this is like 8 years ago now. And people were looking at me like, breathwork, really? Is that for people that can't breathe or have like respiratory issues? And I was like, no, it's for everyone. You just got to try it. But then when lockdown hit, when we, were told that, there's this virus, we can't go out, we're all staying home, and the fear and the panic that was across the world, I was like, whoa, okay, I need to show up here in some aspect. And actually, for me, thinking, I've never thought about this actually, and it's just coming up now as you're asking me, but I did get COVID, and it was just before we went into lockdown. And so at this point, we didn't know that much about it. We just knew that there's this virus and people are being really impacted, or, it's attacking respiratory system. It's dangerous, and all of this fear was out there. And I got COVID, and I remember I got all of the symptoms, and I got this fever, and I was in bed, and I was like, oh my gosh, I 40-degree fever. What's going to happen? I'm going to wake up in hospital on a ventilator. I can't breathe. And I was starting to get into that mindset. And then I had to check myself and say, Jess, this is essentially just a variation of the flu. Your body can handle this. You just need to give it a chance. And I breathed and I did my breath work and I tried to regulate my nervous system as much as I could. I woke up in the morning, the fever was gone, and I started to feel better. And I was like, my goodness, I've got these tools and this training and, the ability to pull myself out of that. What about those people that don't? They just need to know that they can do this, they can get through this, they can use their breath. And then I was like, I have to put myself out there. And so that's when I started to show up more. I did my first live videos. My goodness, my lost access to my Facebook account back in April last year. So you won't be able to see these, but some of my first videos, I wasn't even looking at the camera. They were awful, but I just had to show up and share this. And then I created an online course. I did that before I even knew what I was doing. I was like, right, you need access to this. If we can work online, you're going to come online, we're going to breathe. And that's when I started to put myself out there a bit more, because for me, it was like, how can I serve? How can I serve? I have something people need access to. I have been through this. It's helped me. I know it can help you. Come on in. Come on in. Here I am. And so that was the turning point for me. And that's when I managed to, change things around for me. And I started thinking of what I was doing as actually my career and a business. And then, it's gone from strength to strength from there. But I guess thank you for asking that question, because it's given me an opportunity to reflect on that and look back. So yes, I guess that's when it was.
I love that so much. And that's so powerful because, yeah, one, obviously your lived experience is the richest thing that you can offer to anyone, which is incredible. And two, like, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? That thing that you were just like, I don't like this. I don't like being on live. I don't like being on camera, but I'm going to do it because I know that someone needs it. And I think that's really the driving force. It should always be the driving force to why you push past imposter syndrome, right? It's like this thing that you have, that your gift, whether it be your knowledge in breathwork or whether it's your lived experience you just want to talk about, all of that is so important, and people need to hear it. I can't tell you the amount of people that just randomly message me on social media to say, I feel like you're talking to me. I really needed that
Mm.
today. Thank you for sharing. And I'm literally just talking my story to the camera. And I think, I'm sure when you would have done the breath work, that people would have been like, wow. And it, you know, for me, when you talk about COVID with the breath work, it makes so much sense, because obviously it's a respiratory attached to the respiratory system, and
Yeah.
you're strengthening that for people. So
Mhm.
you are literally physically, tangibly releasing out the virus from their body. For me, that's like a no-brainer of why that makes so much sense. And I wonder if that made a difference to a lot of people, as in people that were breathing a lot, people that were meditating a lot. I would love to see those figures to like maybe yoga-y people compared to like average people that don't think about their breath, how the difference was in terms of their how it affected them, because I'm sure there was something about people that exercise regularly had COVID not as severe as people that didn't. But yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it, to pull that apart.
Mm.
I know that's my like sciencey brain, that I'm like, oh, I need to know what that is. I'm going to look at that. But yeah,
But it's also boosting your immune system as well.
that's it.
Just breath work, it will boost your immune system. It releases stress in the body, so it just creates a better environment in you. So you're
Yeah.
vibrating at a different frequency. You're just feeling different. So
Mm,
it's just, there's so many things. There's so many layers to it that it's
yeah.
just, yeah, it's
And
fascinating to
I
think
think
about.
that key, you just said the key, that hit the nail on the head there, is that it's the stress relief. And
Mm.
don't we know that the biggest cause of most diseases is stress? Even cancer is caused by stress. So it's like, if we can do these things and practices that help us relieve that stress from our body, we could change our lives and our life's expectancy. You know, I watched this program, Live to 100, on Netflix, and it was just talking about how people live and like the quality of life. And there's a real sense of like community, connection, faith, and quality of time, you know, like how they're spending their time. And I think we're such in a fast-paced society and like deadline driven and all of these things, that yeah, if you can add in breath work into your life in some capacity, whether that's once a month, once a week, I think it will change people's lives. Because for me, I use meditation as a regular form of like regulation for me, and that's morning and night. So I have like a bookend of like mindfulness in my day, and
Beautiful.
that's so important to me. I cannot, even if I've been out drinking with my friends, I will try to meditate that evening. Now, don't get me wrong, it's bad, but it's better to just be conscious in that moment before I go to sleep, to allow my body to know that we are winding down now. I can start unfolding.
Yeah.
And I have a better quality of sleep than I've ever had in my life. And I will not sacrifice that now. So I'm so rigid in my routines, because I know what the alternative to that feels like. And I would say that to everyone, right? This is
Yes.
what's important,
I'm
isn't it?
literally smiling as you're talking, because I can resonate with that deeply. And I talk about this and I teach about this, those daily practices. It's like, these are some of the best habits you could ever form.
Mm,
And I have worked hard at that, but that is what keeps me going, my daily routine. If I don't
mm,
have that, I don't feel. I can give you an example. When I stopped doing my daily routine, it was for about 2 weeks. This is a few years back now. And I noticed that I was getting a bit tense and things weren't working. I felt out of alignment. I was like, why do I feel overwhelmed? And I was like, I haven't done my morning practice for nearly 2 weeks. And I was like,
mm,
so sometimes you don't notice how much it's supporting you till you stop doing it. Then I was like,
mm.
there's no way I'm not going to continue with that. And now it is just a way of life. And I love that you will do it in the evening and tell yourself, right, we're winding down for bed. This is it. And do your whatever practice is good for you, because that's you. And it's perfect
Mm,
because you're connected to yourself. You know what you're
absolutely.
doing, right? So
Mm.
beautiful. I love
No,
that.
yeah, no. I think, well, we always talk about this, don't we? As in like our eh, fear of people, like sphere, sorry, of people, is that we all know how important that routine is, you know, to create a
Mm.
routine for yourself. And I think that's something that I prioritize with my clients quite early on, is like, you need to have a routine. Like, for example, I'll be up for at least an hour before I check my phone. And I know so many people that pick their phone up, start scrolling through social media, and
Mm.
that straight away is setting the tone for your day. Whereas for me, turn my alarm off, I listen to my affirmations. I've got like my meditation routine that I do. I've got something I read in the morning, like a script thing that I've got for like my life plan, and all of the things are just reiterating in my body. And then I make my bed, I stretch, and then I'm ready to go. I go downstairs, I do my drinks that I have in the morning, and then, you know, prepare my breakfast, and then that's when I'll pick my phone up. So I have to always add an extra 30 minutes onto my morning. So even if I'm going to be up to teach or to lead something, I'll have to get up that extra bit early to make sure I fit my routine in, because when I don't do that, again, like we said, we crumble, right? It's those strong foundations that lift us up to the highest heights. And I think without a strong foundation, you'll always crumble at some point. So this is why we need that element of that, don't we, in our lives? And I think, you know, as I said, adding breath working or meditation or whatever it is that's going to feel good to you, if it's journaling, whatever it is, there needs to be something there, just one thing you can add into your life. And I challenge anyone that's listening, like, what can you add that's one thing that would just change your life in a really positive way? And for me, I record the affirmations myself in my own voice. And I think that for me is just like a really nice little thing to do. As soon as my alarm goes off, quickly whack that on, listen to it while I'm still in, like, I can't remember, what is it? Delta or theta brainwave, whatever it is, one of the two. And
I don't want to confirm. I don't want to. Yeah, I can't remember.
Well, I think there's like 4, isn't there? 4 stages. So it's one of those vibrations that we're in, well, before we're fully awake. So it really gets the beat in my body. And even Neville Goddard, he says, like, the minute you wake up, set your intention for the day. Today's gonna be a great day. That's all. That could be literally what people do from now on. But yeah, no, I kind of went off on a tangent there about
no, but I'm following you with that, because I agree. And it's like, find out what your non-negotiables are. It doesn't have to be the same as someone else.
Absolutely.
And I've when I was figuring out for myself, it's when I was in Brazil, I started to implement a morning practice. And at one point it was like an hour and a half, and sometimes it included a beach swim. And I'm like, okay, I need to cut this down, because I'm not going to get anything done till lunchtime. So now I've got my practices that I know are my non-negotiables. And sometimes if I can do it for a bit longer, I will. But I've got to have those every day. And I love that you record your own affirmations in your own voice. That is so powerful. I've wanted to do that and I haven't yet. So that's amazing. And with the not checking your phone when you wake up, I'd love to ask you how you implemented that, because I teach my clients this and they're like, oh, but what do I do? And it's really hard. How did you implement that for yourself?
I think I have a very strong willpower. I just think I've always had that. So if I say I'm not going to do something, there's no budge in me. So I think that's also it. I do set a phone limit. So it's easy to do it in the nighttime because my apps all just switch off. So in the evening, I have a screen limit, but you can also do it in the morning. So if you know that you would go to check your social straight away, have the screen limit off until when you're on the train or, you know, whatever. So say, for example, you get up at 6, maybe have the screen time off until 7. So then you're awake, but you can't go into your apps unless you like go through the process of turning it off and all of the things. And can you be bothered that time in the morning to faff around with all that? Not really. You just be like, oh yeah, I forgot, I can't do that. So it's almost like training the brain to not do it. And or I put my phone on the other side of the room. That's what I used to do when I was younger. Put it on the other side of the room, and then I have to physically get out of bed to turn the alarm off. And then at that point, when you're standing up, are you going to stand there and scroll? No, probably not. You're going to just get yourself out ready. Do you know what I mean? So it takes discipline, but I feel like I am a bit of a queen of discipline. I feel like it's quite a natural thing for me to implement what I set. And I know that, I mean, for me, astrology plays a big part in that as well, because my moon's Capricorn. So that's all about structure and routine. So for me, it makes sense that mentally my brain works like that. But equally, like a lot of what I'm learning now is because I've always been a high achiever, I would put a lot of weight on that to be like, it has to be like this. I have to do it like this. I have to get it right. So there is flexibility within that. But some things are non-negotiable. Like you said, the morning routine is non-negotiable. That has to be done every single day. But I used to put exercise on a pedestal. So I used to be thinking, I need to work out every day. I need to do this every day. That for me is now softened. I'm like, okay, what am I achieving by going to the gym today? Am I going to move my body, to be mindful of my body, to connect to my body? And or have I had a blowout and I feel like I need to just work off that? That's cool. If I feel tired and exhausted in my body, that's a sign for me to question whether I need to go or not. and actually I'm being more mindful with that. So, and that comes with that level of discernment. And I literally spoke about this in January because I felt like it was so prevalent that discipline is showing up for yourself every single day. Discernment is asking yourself whether it's necessary or not. And I think you need both. That's the polarity, isn't it, in that space?
Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful. And it's being kind to yourself, isn't it? And understanding and
Definitely.
being connected. And if you want to move every day, does it have to be the gym? You know, I often say to clients, put on your favorite song and dance, like
Oh, yeah.
literally shake it
Speaking my
out in your
language.
kitchen or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Just whatever feels good for you. Go for a walk, you
Yeah,
know, just move your body
absolutely.
in a way that is gentle and kind to yourself. So I
Mm,
love that you do that. And yeah, I can see that you seem to be quite disciplined, which is great, but I've had to work at some of those things because it doesn't come as naturally to me because I'm like, oh no,
mm,
but I could do this. And it's like with the phone thing, I would start by just keeping it on silent, and then I haven't got to keeping it out of my room yet, but I don't check it as such.
that's good.
Flight mode's a good one as well, putting on
Yeah.
flight mode because then you can't get messages through. But I love that. Yeah. The morning
Mm,
routine or the daily routine, just find what works for you and let it flow.
yeah.
Okay.
Also, as well, if I was in Rio every day for a year, I would want to go for a beach swim. Just saying.
Oh,
That would
that's
be my setup for the day.
honestly, I would live like 2 streets back from the beach. So we would go in the morning before it gets busy, before it gets too hot.
Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh,
like,
so hot. That is the most burnt I've ever been in my life, and I'm brown. You
yeah.
know, I'm like, it was 40 degrees. We went up, we climbed the Two Brothers, came back down again.
Oh,
Because it was so early, we didn't put sun cream on because it was like super, super early, or I just put it on my arms. And then on the beach, I then put the sun cream on top, but I should have
mhm.
put it on obviously before I left. So then I was burnt under the bra line and
Oh,
on the top of the waistline where, you know, your bikini pants are. And that was the day I had to get the 9-hour flight home. And I was like, wow.
oh, Sherisse, I feel for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I've only burnt probably very few times in my life, and I felt like Brazil was one of the times I would accept because it was just an incredible experience. So yeah, I'm
Magic.
very
It's a
jealous you got
magical
to be there for a year.
place. Yeah,
Isn't
magical
it?
place. What someone once said to me once, as an intuitive healer I was working with, she's like, Brazil is like the heart of the world. It's
Oh,
like if you look at it,
really?
it's like the heart of the world. It's just so that yeah, you can I don't know, the vibration there is just so much lighter and it's a higher vibration. I just feel like everyone
Mm,
is so open, like really
mm.
open and expressive, and there's a lot of love there. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's so funny you said that because I don't know if you had this too. This is like a really like different energy, but I feel like it's funny because you just said that. When we were at the blockos, you know, the street parties,
yeah.
everyone wants to just kiss each other.
Yeah.
So they're literally coming up to you to say, "Can I kiss you?" I'm like, "I don't even know you, man. Like, no." Like, do you know what I mean? But literally, just people were just kissing each other. This is obviously well before COVID as well. And
Yeah.
I just thought, so it's funny you said it's the heart of the world. So I'm like, yes, these people have got a lot of love to give because they literally want to kiss everyone.
Very amorous, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fair play to them for that, you know. But I was very closed off at that time, and I was like, please don't come near me. I don't
Mm.
know who else you've been kissing. I don't want to be taking no bacteria here, thanks.
Yeah.
But it's just funny, isn't it? But oh, it's been so lovely to talk to you, Jessie. And I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I feel like there's so much more we could cover.
Likewise.
But we'll do it another time for sure. And yeah, I guess really, how can people work with you?
Mhm.
Give us all of your offerings.
Yes, so I work with people one-to-one online and in person. So I'm based in Kingston in North London. No, North Kingston in South London. We'll get that right. And I work with people online and in person. Like I said, I run group classes in Richmond once a month, and I do ad hoc classes around London as well. I'm organizing retreats. So if you're looking to come on a
Nice.
5-day retreat, you can jump on my website, get registered for my newsletter, you'll get the updates. And I also have an online membership. So we breathe together once a week online through that, and you get to come to workshops, and I've got a program that we're working through on that as well. So there's a number of ways that we can work together. If you're a little bit curious, just reach out, we can have a chat. And I've got loads of free stuff on YouTube, and I've just launched a podcast as well, so you can check that out. And it is all about breath work. But Sherisse, I'd love to have you on there at some point as
Yes,
well. We can
100%.
continue this over there. That would be
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yes, 100% that. And I urge everyone to go over and just check you out, because yeah, it's really amazing what you're doing. And I'll pop all the links in the show notes so then everyone can find you really easily. So that's good. So always, to end the episode, I do a little soul to soul message. So it's just kind of either based off the conversation and or whatever comes up for you that you want to share right now. Like, what's your soul's message?
Just trust yourself, my love. Start listening to what's in your heart and know that it's safe to follow your heart.
Absolutely that. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Jessie. And I feel sad to end the episode, because I feel like there's so much more we could talk about, but we will continue this in another way for sure. Yeah, it's so amazing to hear what you're doing and to bring your energy. And yeah, obviously as well, put your podcast details in there as well, because everyone can have a listen to your very soothing voice in that capacity as well. But yeah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Lots of love, everyone.